So let's find out how well ChatGPT knows RuneScape history. So on the left-hand side, you can see that I've prepared 6 questions. I expect that the first 2 questions should be easy to answer. The third one is a little bit more subjective, but I think there is still a consensus opinion on what the correct answer is here. Then the fourth question should again be a little easier because it's information that should be fairly easy to look up. Then the fifth and the sixth questions are open-ended questions, so these are more complex, and I do expect that ChatGPT will struggle here, mainly because the complete answer isn't very well known by the RuneScape community. So maybe before we get started with this, try to answer these 6 questions yourself first and see how many you get right. I will now put each question into ChatGPT, and then I will go over each answer to see how well ChatGPT is able to answer those questions. Right? Okay, let's get started. So the first question: who are the creators of RuneScape? Right, so ChatGPT says RuneScape was created by Andrew Gower and initially developed and published by Jagex Game Studio. Andrew Gower, along with his brother Paul Gower, started working on the game in the late 1990s. The game was officially released to the public in January of 2001. RuneScape has since evolved and expanded, becoming one of the most popular and enduring MMORPGs in the world. The Gower brothers and Jagex played pivotal roles in its early development and success. So let's go over this. So that of course is correct. Andrew Gower was one of the creators of RuneScape. Then ChatGPT does mention Paul Gower. I would have liked to see Ian Gower mentioned as well. I also think that 1990s is a little bit fake. I think it's better to it really depends on if you consider Devious Mud, which is the precursor of RuneScape, as a part of the development of RuneScape. If so, then you could say 1998 is more correct, 1999. Development of the actual RuneScape beta, so when it was still in its alpha phase, began in the year 2000. Then the game was officially released in January of 2001, that is very much correct. And then the last few bits are a little less relevant. So for this answer, I think it's okay to give ChatGPT the full point, even though I would have liked to see Paul Gower and Ian Gower mentioned, although Ian Gower did have a less prominent role at first. So let's give ChatGPT 1 point here. Then the next question. What was RuneScape's 100 quest and when was it released? So as of my knowledge, cutoff date in September of 2021. Okay, so ChatGPT only answers or only has information stored up to 2021 apparently, or this version of ChatGPT at least. It says RuneScape's 100 quest was the brink of extinction, which was released on August 13, 2012. However, it's worth noting that the game continued to receive updates and new quests after that date, so there may have been additional quests released beyond my knowledge cutoff date. If you're looking for more information about quests released after September 2021, I recommend checking the official RuneScape website. Okay, I'm very surprised that it gets this one wrong because there should be a lot of information out there that says that RuneScape's 100 quest is of course Recipe for Disaster, released in March of 2006, I believe. 15th or 16th March maybe. So yeah, that's very surprising. So just to give a quick overview, I think Legends quest was the 50th quest, then Recipe for Disaster as the 100th, then the 150th quest was the Chosen Commander, and then the 200th quest was Dimension of Disaster. I'm not sure which number the Brink of Extinction is. I also doubt that is this date correct, because if I'm not, maybe I'm mixing things up here, but I believe the Brink of Extinction was released to introduce the concept of combat abilities with the evolution of combat. So I would think that August 13, 2012 is not correct, but maybe I'm remembering this wrong. Wait, let's just look this up. Let's look this up. Let's look this up. I want to know now. The brink of extinction. There we go. See, it says the 4th of December of 2012, which is what I suspected, that it was released after the launch of Evolution of Combat, which was released in November of 2012. Okay, so that means 0 points for this question. Then the next question. Who is generally recognized as RuneScape's most legendary player? So one of the most legendary players in RuneScape history is known as Zedzima. Zedzima, whose real name is Peter Zedzima, gained widespread recognition and fame within the RuneScape community for achieving high-level stats and being a prominent figure in the game. He was particularly known for being the first player to reach the maximum total level in the game, which was 2277 at the time. I'll get back to this later. Zedzima's accomplishments, dedication to the game, and status as a top-ranked player made him a well-known and respected figure among RuneScape players. While RuneScape has had many skilled and famous players over the years, Zedzima remains one of the most iconic and legendary figures in the game's history. Please note that my knowledge, okay, and then that again, 2021 is the cutoff. So it does get, the general answer is correct. It is Zedzima, of course. The details aren't correct because it says he was particularly known for being the first player to reach the maximum total level in the game, which is correct, but this part is not correct. It wasn't 2277 at the time. In fact, it was 1980. So that was a year earlier in 2005. The 2277 is from after the release of the Hunter skill in November of 2006, and it wasn't Zedzima, but I think it was the Hate who became the first player to reach the maximum total level of 2277 at that point. So Zedzima was indeed the first player to reach the maximum total level in the game ever, but that happened a year earlier in 2005, shortly before the release of the farming skill in July of 2005. I think that was. I think it was maybe even 3 days before the release of the farming skill. I can't remember anymore, but it must have been something like that because I know Zedzima was very close. Anyway, then some general remarks about his achievements. So yeah, that's also correct. So I'm going to give ChatGPT a half point here because it does get the answer correct, but the details aren't. So I can give a full point here. So that's 0.5 out of 1. Then the next question. This one should be interesting. Which of these did not exist in RuneScape when RuneScape was launched on 4 January 2001? Then we have Crimson Charm, Iron Ore, Law Rune, Roll Lobster, and Willow Locks. So Crimson Charm. Crimson Charms were introduced to RuneScape later as part of the summoning skill, which was released on January 15, 2008. That is 100% correct. Law Runes. Law Runes were part of the game's initial release in January 2001 and have been available since the beginning. This is incorrect, so Law Runes did not yet exist. In fact, they were added to the game in May of 2000 and one as a major expansion to the what did I say? May 2001? I meant May 2001. Not sure if I said that. So in May 2001, as a major expansion to the Magic skill, together with some of the other non-elemental runes, such as the Cosmic Rune, the Chaos Rune, the Death Rune, and the Nature Rune. So that is not correct. Then Iron Ore was also part of the game's initial release. That is correct. Then Raw Lobsters were not initially available when the game launched in January of 2001. That is correct. Lobsters were introduced to RuneScape on May 29, 2002, and that is of course incorrect because lobsters were added to the game alongside the fishing skill on the 11th of June of 2001. So that's a half year after the launch of RuneScape. So this is not correct. Then Willow Logs. Willow Logs were part of the game's initial release in January of 2001. Also, this is not correct. In fact, only regular logs were available. And that is because until the release of the fletching skill in March of 2002, only regular logs could be used for fire making and also regular trees for wood cutting. So this is not correct. Willow logs did not yet exist in January of 2001. They were released together with the fletching skill in March of 2002. So then the general conclusion, so out of the options provided, raw lobster did not exist in RuneScape when the game was launched on January 4th, 2001. So that is, well, of course that's correct, but it got some of these options wrong. So I can give a point for that. So that's 0 points out of 1. Okay, and so now it gets more interesting with the open-ended questions. So why was the party room in RuneScape moved from Sears Village to Falador? The party room in RuneScape was moved from Sears Village to Falador as part of game updates and changes made by Jagex for various reasons. The main reason for this move was to create a more centralized and accessible location for player-run events and celebrations, making it easier for players from different parts of the game world to participate. Moving the party room to Falador also made it more convenient for players to use the party room's features, which include dropping items and initiating balloon drops during celebrations and events. Falador is a central location in the game, making it more suitable for hosting in-game parties and gatherings. This change was made to improve the player experience and encourage more player engagement and celebration in celebrations and events within RuneScape. It allowed for a more inclusive and community-focused approach to in-game festivities. The move from Sears Village to Falador occurred as part of RuneScape's updates and game enhancements to better accommodate the needs and preferences for the player base. So this all sounds very nice and it is correct, but it's an answer that beats a little bit around the bush. Why? Because there is a very specific reason why this update happened, and it is more than just the main reason for this was to create a more centralized and accessible location. So which is of course why it was moved to Falador, but the underlying reason is, and this have to do or did have to do with the fact that Jagex was planning to abolish free trades at some point in the future, because this update, so when the party room was moved to Falador, happened in 2007, I think in the summer of 2007, if I remember correctly. Then, as some of you know, or as many of you know, a half year later, Wilderness PvP was disabled, and then a few weeks later, Free Trade was also disabled. So Jagex wanted to keep the party room in the game, but because they were already taking away free trade from everyone, this means that free players basically didn't have anything or didn't have many options anymore to give away items or to give away or to do some sort of drop parties. So that's why the party room was moved to Falador, so that also free players could still host parties and give away some items. So I can't really give ChatGPT the full point for this, but I do think a half point is okay. Okay, then the last question. So on 26 November of 2007, the Grand Exchange was added to RuneScape, explained in up to 200 words how this affected the game playing experience and the competition in the high scores. And I do want something about the competition in the high scores because it did have a very profound impact. So let's see what ChatGPT can come up with. So that's a whole lot of text. I'm not sure it's 200 words. So the addition of the Grand Exchange to RuneScape on November 26, 2007 had a profound impact on the game playing experience and the competition in the high scores. That's correct. Firstly, the Grand Exchange revolutionized the way players traded items in the game. Prior to its introduction, trading was primarily conducted through player to player interactions in crowded marketplaces. The Grand Exchange provided a centralized and automated marketplace where players could buy and sell items at market driven prices. This made trading more efficient and accessible, allowing players to quickly acquire or sell items without the need for direct negotiation. So this first part is very correct. I don't think I need to say anything else about that. This change also had a significant impact on the in-game economy. The Ground Exchange's price tracking system influenced item values, leading to a more stable economy and reducing instances of price manipulation by players. So I'm not an economist, so I can't say if it did lead to a more stable economy or if it did reduce instances of price manipulation by players, because of course we are all aware of the merchanting clans that used to buy out items and make them go up and make them reach prices that were insanely high. I assume by reducing instances of price manipulation, I assume that ChatGPT refers to scamming here, so claiming prices that aren't correct, trying to deceive other players. So I'm going to assume that's what ChatGPT means here in this instance or in this case. So then, in terms of the high scores, the Grand Exchange affected the competition by making it easier for players to acquire the resources needed to train skills or undertake quests. This leveled the playing field to some extent as players could access the necessary equipment and materials more readily. Consequently, the competition on the high scores became more intense, with players vying for top ranks in overall skills and achievements. So, of course, this is correct. I do think that ChatGPT fails to stress the fact or to stress the time saving aspect of the Grand Exchange, because it is the fact that players saved a lot of time, which allowed them to spend more time skilling. Then, of course, as ChatGPT does say, the players could access the necessary equipment and materials more readily. That also played a major role in the fact that people began increasing their XP rates. Because if you remember, or if you followed the high scores back then you will surely have noticed that after the release of the Grand Exchange, the XP rates increased rapidly, and that is because suddenly all the top players not only began using the Grand Exchange to engage in merchanting and to increase their own profits, but they also then used those profits to buy the resources that were needed to train the buyable skills such as crafting, herb lore, cooking, fletching, etc. And of course, they could put in these offers in the Grand Exchange while doing other things in RuneScape. So that is what contributed immensely to the sudden rapid increases in the XP rates that you see on charts that display the XP progress of the top players back then. So overall, the Grand Exchange streamlined trading, stabilized the economy, and intensified competition in RuneScape, fundamentally altering the game playing experience for millions of players. So I think that's correct. I'm going to give. Yeah, I think this is a good enough answer. Maybe some of the details were missed. I also do miss the fact. Well, one important element that's missing here is that ChatGPT does not specifically mention scamming, because that is of course one major reason why the Grand Exchange was considered a good update in the eyes of Jagex. Because I'm aware there's a lot of different opinions on that. But yeah, the Grand Exchange did eliminate a huge part of all the scamming that was happening at the time. So that's something that I would have liked ChatGPT to mention as well. But based on based on the other stuff that ChatGPT did say, I think that's good enough, and that's why I want to give ChatGPT the full points here. So then, if you look at the total score, then we have 1 point, 1.5, 2 points, 3 points. So it gets 3 points out of 6. I think that's what we I think that's we could have expected in advance. Yeah, I think that's a logical result. Of course, ChatGPT is going to get some answers right, and some answers it will get wrong, either because they are too complicated, or strangely because it just can't find the correct information online, even though some of this information should have been fairly easy to find, such as this question about what the 100th quest was. So I do find it strange that ChatGPT did get that one wrong. I'm also surprised that ChatGPT was able to answer the Grand Exchange question in the way it did with the depth that it provided. Yeah, I think this was a very interesting video, so I might make more episodes of this in the future. Let me know if this is something that you would be interested in. Also, let me know how many of these questions you got right or wrong, or if you did better or worse than ChatGPT, of course. Okay, so if you like this video, consider subscribing. Consider liking this video, of course, as well, giving it a thumbs up. And then we'll see each other again in the future. Well, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.